is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Here's the question. Is Jameis Winston worth it? Is he worth all the trouble? Is he good enough to justify putting up with this crap? Here's the answer. We'll know in about 6 months. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Give me a call. Help me answer that question. Is Jameis Winston worth it? 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Before we get into it, before we break it all down, we've got a little bit of a show mystery going on. Today's episode, Monday, whatever the date is, June something. Let's call this the Scooby-Doo episode. We want to find out who was under the mask. Or better yet, where was Bubba on Friday? Nobody knows. And when I say that, I'm not being facetious. Cerruti, do you know where Bubba was on Friday?
He keeps telling us he was at a screening convention in, Kansas City?
In Kansas City. Nuno, do you know where Bubba was on Friday?
Allegedly at a screening convention in Kansas City?
And does anybody in the radio department know where Bubba was on Friday?
That's allegedly at some screening convention that no one knows about.
Bubba was out on Friday, as was Cerruti for that matter, but we know where Cerruti was. Cerruti was out doing wedding finalization preparation for his coming nuptials. Bubba, on the other hand, we haven't a clue, and he won't tell anybody. All we know is this one detail. One little Scooby-Doo lead. It was in Kansas City. So, we've got 3 hours, folks, to figure out what was going on in Kansas City on Friday. Together, you, me, Cerruti, and Uno, we can figure that out. 888-729-3776. Until then, is Jameis Winston worth it? See, we know the tally now. We know the cost. We know what's going on. Jameis Winston has been with the Tampa Bay Bucs for 3 years. You include his time with the Florida State Seminoles, and you've got an alleged rap sheet that includes a rape, a sexual assault, theft, and at least an unsavory act in the cafeteria at Florida State. That's the cost. What's the benefit? The benefit is a guy who just had his best year as a pro. Jameis Winston set career records for completion percentage with 63, almost 64%. He set career records for low in interceptions. He only threw 11 interceptions this year. And he set a career high in quarterback rating at 92. Jameis Winston is going into his 4th year, coming off what we'll call a career year. Going into a year where he's now expected to be suspended for 25% of that season. And the question is he worth it? Are you getting what you want out of Jameis Winston? See, the thing is, everything's a cost-benefit analysis. Everything is a measurement of what do you bring me against what do you cost me. I mean, it's very simplest. That's what all of us are evaluated on at our jobs. How much do you make? What's your productivity? I could get Brad Pitt to do this movie for $20 million. Is my box office going to ring up the same way if I get, Tobey Maguire at $5 million? Better yet, I've got a perfect sports example. Is Carmelo Anthony worth the 16 points a game he averaged this year, 12 in the playoffs? When you consider what he's going to cost after opting into his contract with Oklahoma City Thunder is $28 million this year. How's that cost-benefit working out for Carmelo Anthony? It's the same thing with Colin Kaepernick. Is the quality of quarterback play you're going to get from Colin Kaepernick worth the potential cost to your business for any customer base that's upset with his protest on the field? You have to understand that billionaires think it's costing them money, and they have to offset that against what they get on the field. Everything is a cost-benefit analysis. Everything in life. Not just sports, not just business, in your personal life, in your marriage. Everything. Is this worth it? For Jameis Winston, is it worth it? That career year I told you about when it comes to quarterback rating, He had a 92 quarterback rating. Well, that put him in 14th in the NFL. If you use QBR instead, which expands it to running statistics, he ranked 18th in the NFL. Jameis Winston is right around average for quarterbacking in the NFL. So, is average worth a rape allegation, a sexual assault allegation, theft of crab legs? Is it worth it? I'll leave you with one other thing here. Jameis Winston has a career quarterback record now of 18-27. He's 400. That puts him in company with guys like Josh McCown and Blake Bortles. I would challenge you. Look across the active NFL quarterback list. Find me somebody with a worse quarterback record that you'd say, that guy's good. I'm tying or hitching my wagon to that guy. Sooner or later, you are judged on the wins. Sooner or later, the statistics are set aside and the wins matter. Quarterbacks in particular, sooner or later, you win some games. Jameis Winston is winning 40% of his games. So is it worth it? Shereen Williams, who writes for Pro Football Talk, says she has a hard time seeing them writing Jameis Winston off.
Well, I mean, you gave up a number one overall pick for him. I don't know that you can move on from him, with what you have invested in him from a financial standpoint and from a draft pick standpoint. You drafted him to be your franchise quarterback, and I don't know that now is the time to give up on him. But I understand exactly where they're coming from because, when you drafted this guy, you didn't know that he was going to get suspended and run into trouble and the things that have gone on. You thought he had learned his lesson. Yep.
But sooner or later, that investment is only hope, and he's got to be real. I'll give you this as well. His contract this year, he has a base salary of what is it? He has a total salary of $8 million, and his base salary is something like $700,000. That jumps to a base salary of $20 million next year. And you're 1 year removed from asking yourself, is he worth something like, I don't know, $80, $90 million guaranteed? Is he worth it? Let's quickly ask Blake from Tampa. You're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Blake?
Jameis is worth it. Yeah, we gave up a first pick in the draft, but he's not playing the way he should be playing. And with all the allegations going on, I just don't think he's worth it. I mean, he hasn't been playing up to his potential. Last season was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even with his injuries, it's just, honestly, I'm sure the QB market, we go out and get someone better. I don't know who, but definitely get someone better than him.
All right, thanks for the call, Blake. So my answer to the question was you've got 6 months. Jameis has 6 months to figure it out. I can't imagine the kind of season Jameis has to put up this year in 12 games to convince the Tampa Bay Buccaneers he's worth all this. It's going to have to be something more than average. I'll tell you that. More than 14th, 18th, more than middle of the road. That's my opening take, brought to you by Firestone Complete Auto Care, keeping cars running newer, longer. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone. Coming up, Carson Wentz. Is he a top 10 player in the NFL? And Dak Prescott, not even in the top 100? That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Hi, everyone. Will Cain here. Support for the Will Cain podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030. NFL Network has their list of top 100 players out, and they've narrowed it down to the top 10. We don't know what order these guys are going to come in, but here are the guys considered the top 10 players in the NFL. Le'Veon Bell, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Antonio Brown, Aaron Donald, Todd Gurley, Julio Jones, Von Miller, Aaron Rodgers, and Carson Wentz. Fine. I guess. Fine. Carson Wentz is great. He's good. Man. Okay, you're going to make the argument to me that Carson Wentz is a top 10 player in the NFL. That puts him at, what, 1, 2, 3, 4th ranked quarterback in the NFL? And Cerruti, I didn't even realize this. But in our show meeting, you said, you do realize something else, right? I said, what? Dak Prescott didn't make the top 100.
Which I knew would just set you off.
It makes me lose my mind. You're telling me Carson Wentz is a top 10 player in the NFL and Dak's not even top 100. Look, I can deal with a certain level. This isn't even my bias. You know what this is? This is hype writers extraordinaire. That's what this is. I'll give you that Carson Wentz is winning the Dak Prescott versus Carson Wentz debate. I'll give it because I'm objective.
Wow. Well, good for you.
Well, I said it in present tense, winning, not won. It's not over. Winning. He's ahead right now. And you act like that's obvious and that's a no-brainer.
It's like saying, I'll give to you that the sky is blue.
No, let me tell you something. You guys are going to be singing such a different tune. You really are. You're so prisoners of the moment. I mean, 6 bad games and you reevaluate everything in life. Does Maddie know that this is what she's about to marry into? I mean, the minute something goes wrong, sky is falling, Chicken Little. Let's reevaluate everything.
Year, and you're going to sit here and say, and you're still doing the Dak thing, huh?
It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. What do they have him? How many quarterbacks do they have above Dak Prescott?
I believe it's at least 15.
And you're telling me this is... I
think that's about right.
Laughable.
Can I say go to hell? I think I can. Get out of here. And if you pass hell along the way, take a stop. 15 quarterbacks. And Carson Wentz is a top 10. And he's not top 100. There's just no argument for that. None. Give me the 15. Come on. Can you do it? Are you prepared?
Yes. Hold on. It is. I'm scrolling. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Laughable.
That's a tough one.
That's
I'll
tough.
give that to you.
That's laughable already.
It's
hold
feels
on.
like prisoner
Stop.
of the moment.
I don't even need to go any further. Jimmy Garoppolo and his 5 starts.
He was 90. Okay. Scrolling. That was a big gap here.
Garoppolo.
Derek Carr, 60. Another one. That's a tough one.
Okay, hold on real quick. So Dak Prescott has a down year because he had 6 bad games. How was Derek Carr's year this year? How was that?
Wasn't great.
Yeah, how was it compared to Dak's? I'm curious. I wish I had a computer in front of me. I would look up Dak's QBR against Derek Carr's QBR.
Let's keep going. Phillip Rivers, 56.
I like Phillip Rivers. He's good. Underrated.
Case Keenum, 51.
So they're ranking Case Keenum ahead of him here, huh?
Deshaun Watson, 50.
Oh, that's another laughable one. That's laughable. How many games did you get? 4? This is the NFL Network?
Jared Goff, 38.
I mean, what? One good year for Dak.
Oh, come on. Goff had a great year last year. You got to put him ahead of Dak.
Okay, let me just ask you this.
This is the 2018 list.
Let's just play percentages. How many, we have 2 seasons of starts for both guys, right? 2 seasons. Goff, good, bad. What do you have? 50-50, right?
Goff's great is better than Dak's great.
50-50. 50-50, yes? Goff's first season was atrocious. His second season was good. Now Dak, good. He had no atrocious.
Good first year, meh, second year.
No.
Meh.
75%
meh.
good. First half of this last season was good too. And his down was in the average to below average range. Goff's was atrocious. This is easy. This is easy for me.
31, Matt Stafford.
He's good.
29, Matt Ryan. 25, Cam Newton.
I don't think Cam's above Dak.
18.
I don't think Cam's above Dak.
Okay. Former MVP of the NFL.
Former carries a lot of weight.
What's Dak? Dak's never been close to that.
That whole sentence is resting on the word former.
Ben Roethlisberger, 18.
Teeter-tottering.
Would you at least say Big Ben is better than Dak?
Yeah.
18.
I would.
Russell Wilson, 11.
I would.
And then the group of 4 that Wentz is in with, it's Wentz, Brady, Breeze, Rodgers.
Okay.
In no particular order.
So that's about right. I think Dak is about 12th. You named about 3 or 4 laughable ones. Dak's about 12. Perfect. Hey, speaking of this NFL Top 100 list, let's focus in for a minute on the guys who aren't quarterbacks. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Aaron Donald, and Von Miller. Let's do that. Those 4. I'm going to give you a receiver, a defensive tackle, a defensive end, and a running back. If I said to you, you could have any of these players, you just can't have a quarterback to build your team around, who would you choose? Would you choose Aaron Donald? Let's change it to Julio Jones, okay? So here's my 4. I'm going to give you Le'Veon Bell, Julio Jones, Aaron Donald, or Von Miller. And you don't, what did we say? Don't get a good quarterback. You get a quarterback like, I don't know, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, and the guy you pick is the best player on your team.
Yeah. Whichever guy you pick is the best player on your team. Who would you build your franchise around? I'd pick Aaron Donald. I'm building from the inside out. I buy into the Louis Riddick, Jeff Saturday stuff. By the way, so let's just narrow it down here. Aaron Donald versus Von Miller. I had Jeff Saturday in last week. He talked about this. Von Miller gets a ton of credit for the disruption that Malik Jackson created on that Denver Broncos defense when he was there a year ago. And then DeMarcus Ware on the other side from him, both of them pushing chaos and pressure towards Von Miller. It doesn't mean Von Miller isn't great. He is absolutely great. Aaron Donald creates that pressure and creates that disruption on his own. He makes that for the other guys. And the truth of the matter is, if I were picking second, I'd take Le'Veon Bell. I went back and looked at this. A running back, while his lifespan, his career is short, you're going to get 5 real solid years out of him. Those kind of years you can get out of running back like Todd Gurley or Le'Veon Bell or Ezekiel Elliott, they can drag you to the playoffs. They can drag a below-average team to the playoffs. Look at what Adrian Peterson did in 2012 with Christian Ponder as his quarterback. Adrian Peterson took that team to the playoffs. I go Aaron Donald, then Le'Veon Bell. Now, Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Coming up, I'll ask that same question. Which of these players would you take? To Hall of Famer Bill Polian. I'll ask him on the Will Cain Show next on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Pro Football Hall of Famer in studio, Bill Polian, giving us the Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Bill, we were just having this debate a little bit earlier in the show. Is Jameis Winston worth it? You factor in all of and I recognize fully that these are allegations. He's not guilty of anything except for whatever we may judge in the court of public opinion. And as his employer, to realize I've got to deal with this stuff. I've got to deal with multiple occasions now that has brought negative attention onto my organization. Trading that for a guy who has gotten better a little bit each year, but statistically he's in middle of the pack quarterback. He's a slightly above average quarterback. Is it worth it?
Well, I think you got to separate it into compartments. On the one hand, it looks, we don't know until it becomes public, but it looks as though, first of all, there's no criminal indictment at all. Second of all, this is a penalty that probably revolves largely around the obligation to report when there's an incident, which clearly he did not do. And so I'm not even sure that there's a finding of guilt. I'm not sure that there isn't, but I'm certainly sure that there has not been thus far. So
can I ask you a question on that really quickly?
Yeah.
The fact that it was a 3-game suspension, is that what it leads you to believe?
Yes. And it seems to me, at least from what we're hearing, that this was something where the league said, we'll give you 3. Will you be okay with that? And his people said, yeah, we're fine with that.
Yeah, it looks like a settlement, a compromise.
Yes, it does. And so there's that. So while there are headlines, I'm not sure that they're burn down the building headlines. Even though he did take a big hit from the Tampa Times, I believe, last week from a columnist.
Yeah, so they should lose his job. They should let go of him.
Yes. Now, the second part of it is the football part. He is a mediocre quarterback. That's what he is. Is he going to get better than that? I saw signs of that this past year. I thought the arrow was up. That's tempered by the fact he's being coached by a very, very good quarterback coach in Dirk Cutter, very quarterback-friendly head coach. So unless he makes quantum leaps, give yourself pause. Finally, you look at what the money is next year when they pick up the 5th-year option. Is he, in fact, a $20 million quarterback? Is he, in fact, the kind of guy that you want to hitch your wagon to for the long term, because that's what you essentially would be doing? And I think a lot will depend upon this year, A, what we finally know about all of this smoke, whether there's some really significant fire there or not, B, how it sits with his history, and C, how he performs on the field this year. All of that is unknown at this point, and I'd say the jury's out. No pun intended, excuse me.
No, I'm with you. The cost-benefit analysis will play itself out this year. We'll offset whatever more we find out about Jameis and his personality and against whatever he does on the field. I'm just wondering, like, you've sat in that seat, Bill. You've been that GM of that team. What do you need to see? Like, what would be enough from Jameis? I mean, Jameis has like a 40% winning percentage right now. He's 400 as a quarterback.
Yeah, part of that is due to the fact that they had an abysmal defense last year.
It is.
It's
but
not entirely his fault.
That's absolutely true, but I was looking at other quarterbacks that are around the same level of winning percentage. You give, I'm not saying it's a wrong excuse, an excuse for his record. There's not many quarterbacks that you look in that range and go, yeah, but he was a pretty good quarterback. In that range of winning 40% of his games.
No, I agree completely. I mean, there's got to be big growth here, not short-term growth, not little growth. He's got to take a quantum leap. Otherwise, you have to sit down and say to yourself, is this the guy, given all that's gone on in his life to this point, is this the guy that's going to lead us to the promised land? Is this the guy that we want out front for our franchise for the next 10 years?
And that we're paying whatever it may be.
And whatever, yeah, you're paying a pretty hefty market price because that's what free agency is about.
Pro Football Hall of Famer Bill Polian here on the Will Cain Show in studio. So I told you when you walked in, NFL Network's got this list of top 100 players out. In the top 10, there's a group of players, non-quarterbacks. I want to ask you which of these you would build your team around. With the burden that I'm giving you is this guy's the best player on your team. So it's not like you also have a good quarterback. This is the best player on your team. Von Miller, defensive end. Aaron Donald, defensive tackle. Le'Veon Bell, running back. Julio Jones, wide receiver. You can only have one. Who do you build your team around?
Aaron Donald, because he is the best player on their team. He's the best player at his position in the league, and the hardest person to find in professional football, other than a great quarterback, is a defensive tackle who can play the run and rush the passer in a Pro Bowl fashion, and that's Aaron Donald.
Okay, so did you just give me essentially a scarcity argument? I've had Louis Riddick in, Jeff Saturday as well for that matter, and they said the same thing as you. Aaron Donald is more valuable than Von Miller. And that is counterintuitive to everything we've been taught, right? Defensive ends make more money. Defensive ends seem to be a position of high drafting. Defensive tackles, not very traditionally drafted that high.
Because there's very few of them that can do what Aaron Donald can do. Aaron Donald arguably should have been the first pick in the draft in his class. Now the draft part of it gets all bollocksed up by hype and quarterbacks and all of that stuff. But if you put the players down in the first 10 in order of who's the best player and who's going to have the biggest impact coming out, it would have been Aaron Donald, just as I thought it would have been Saquon Barkley this year. So there's no argument among football people. And then there's an additional part of that is that he's closest to the ball other than the quarterback, and he has the most impact on the game because he's closest to the ball every play.
That scarcity argument, so it would go like this, right? Okay, if I don't have Von Miller, maybe I get Khalil Mack. If I don't have Khalil Mack, maybe I get DeMarcus Lawrence. If you go from Aaron Donald,
pretty big drop off between Khalil Mack and DeMarcus Lawrence.
Maybe in my homer bias, but I was trying to come up with things. But this is to serve the point. How big's the drop off from Aaron Donald to the next guy?
It's a chasm.
Who's the next best defensive tackle?
I can't even think of him.
Gerald McCoy?
Maybe.
And that's a chasm.
And that's with a defense that's awful.
So a huge chasm from Aaron Donald to the next best defensive tackle.
Yes.
That's why haven't the Rams paid him?
I don't know. To tell you the truth, I'm puzzled by it. It may well be that because of all of the things that we're saying, that the agent is asking for quarterback money and the Rams just don't feel they can go there. I'm surmising that because there's no one, as evidenced, Lewis and Jeff both said exactly the same thing I said. I mean, football people look at him and say, this is the best player at his position in the league. And maybe that the demands are a little high, but we'll see. I mean, I'm surprised that it hasn't been done yet.
All right, Hall of Famer Bill Polian here on the Will Cain Show. Thanks for your time, Bill.
My pleasure.
Coming up, did the Sixers basically wave the white flag on Markelle Fultz? Have they called it a bust? That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. If you can connect dots, if you can read between the lines, what you know right now is the Philadelphia 76ers have waved the white flag on Markelle Fultz. They're basically screaming from the mountaintops that Fultz was a bust. And it's hard to ignore. I'll explain in just a moment here on the Will Cain Show, presented by Progressive Insurance. Remember, you can listen to all 3 hours of the show on your phone, on your ESPN app. See, the way I figure it is, if somebody goes somewhere, takes a trip, and is absolutely, obstinately unwilling to tell you where they were, you're looking at one of two possibilities. Bubba left our show on Friday. He was not on the show on Friday. And nobody knows. Nobody in the radio department. I haven't checked with our bosses. I would imagine somebody. Liam? Justin? Somebody's got to know where Bubba was. But he won't tell us. He won't tell Cerruti. He won't tell the Nuno. Won't tell anybody. All we know is he went to Kansas City.
Well, I think that's where you have it wrong. I've been telling everyone I went to Kansas for a screening convention. I've told everyone where I went.
No one even knows what that means. What is a screening convention?
So one of the things I do, in addition to doing this show, is I'm in charge of our tape room where they cut all the highlights. They watch all the games, cut the home runs, cut the press conference, all that. So I've been in charge of that for about a year. No big deal. And so I'm what's called the screening leader. So I lead that group. And one of the things I started going last year to Kansas is a screening convention. So I met with other screening leaders, and learned about my craft. So the one thing keep telling everyone what I've been doing. I've been telling everyone.
Enough with this, okay?
Right.
It's the Will Cain Show. We don't lie on this show, okay? You can lie to everybody else. What was that face you're making? That he's the leader of the screening room? Was that what you were making a face at, Nuno?
Well, I'm definitely trying not to pay attention because this Portugal game's almost over. But he's saying these, I'm the leader. Yes, technically. You know how he leads? He forwards emails saying, hey, this is some great sound. Grab it.
And because of me, we now have that sound. So
it's a real boss move.
Sounds like it's going pretty well.
That's a power move.
Yeah.
So the way I figure, though, is if you go somewhere and you won't tell your coworkers and you won't tell anybody where you were, you've got one of two options. It was either medical in nature, or it's about a lady. I'm trying to see if it could be both, but I don't really think I can make it a medical lady issue. So, hot or cold?
Well, it's cold in the sense that I went to a screening convention in Kansas.
If you keep saying that nonsense, your nose is gonna grow and you're gonna burn if you keep lying like that, because you're lying to millions of people right now.
Are you sure? That's lying Steve who lies, not me. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys, all right?
Okay, you sit this out for one more second. Sir, do you think I'm right? Lady or medical? One or the other?
I don't think so. Bubba's been known to, third or fifth wheel, however you want to do it. So I'm not sure. He's very comfortable going on trips. This could have been a friend's trip that,
Why would he lie about that? Why would he not tell us?
Because Bubba's just a weird guy.
Well, you know what? On the medical front, Bubba, stay out of this. On the medical front, we're 2 hours from New York City. What could you need to go to Kansas City for medically?
Yeah, there's no, center there that you would need.
It's like a gastroenterology specialist or something. I mean, so that leaves me with lady. Did you meet somebody on, Match? If you say screening convention, God help me, I'm going to...
I was told to stay out of it, so...
All right, this Philadelphia 76ers, they're admitting things. Bubba won't admit it, but they're admitting defeat on Markelle Fultz. Reports are that the night of the NBA draft, the Sixers shopped Markelle Fultz, the number 10 pick, and the number 26 picks to get into the top 5. They were willing to package the number 1 overall pick from a year ago with 2 other first-round picks to get back into the top 5. Combine that with the fact that just a week or two ago, you had members of the Philadelphia 76ers front office management laying the blame for Markelle Fultz on the dead body of Brian Colangelo, saying that other people were trying to talk him out of taking Fultz, that they were really interested in Jason Tatum. But no, Colangelo put his foot down. He had to have Markelle Fultz. Offloading the blame. If you're offloading blame and trying to offload the player, you're sending the message loud and clear. I mean, you would think the Sixers would still have some hope left for Markelle Fultz. Retain some idea that they're going to get their value out of him. That he's going to be the player they thought he was when they drafted him. But with these kind of messages, they're admitting he's not going to be who they thought he was. And then this. Fultz's trainer, Drew Hanlon, told the Philadelphia Inquirer that what held Fultz back was, yes, an injury, but also a mental block. In fact, the quote he used was that Fultz had the yips. This offseason, Fultz was merely working on basing shooting drills. As Hanlon said, he completely forgot how to shoot. Markelle Fultz, the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft a year ago, somewhere between the draft and the start of his rookie season, completely forgot how to shoot. What's the most famous case of the yips? Chuck Knobloch unable to throw it to first base?
I would say so.
Like the original version is Mackie Sasser. Wasn't he the catcher? Couldn't get it back to the pitcher? Just a mental block in your head. You can't execute your job. Kind of like me when I can't speak or hit a heart out.
When you put random letters and words where they don't belong.
R's in the middle, like Washington. Miss heart outs. Just got the yips. I can't believe that with Fultz. How do you get it back? How do you get it back? How does Fultz ever become the player that everybody thought he would be?
Would you buy stock in him right now, though? Like, would you buy low?
Yes.
Because I would.
Yes. I'm into that idea of like a value buy, buying at the discount rack. I'm into that. And if they're putting Fultz out there at this is ridiculous. I mean, how am I supposed to do a show? It's just like it's like a freaking react play in 20 seconds in there.
It's hard to concentrate in here with it.
It's hard to concentrate in here doing a radio show. I've never seen, listen at home. I've never seen, Portugal is playing Iran right now, and Iran just scored to make it 1-1. Iran. Earlier, when Portugal scored their first goal, tell me if this is Bubba, Strudy, was this how it went? Ha!
It was higher pitched and longer.
And it was a Hulk like this. Ha!
I still higher and longer.
And now Iran just scored, and I see just double hands in the air, exasperation. What?
I mean, if they lose, they're out. So
Portugal's out. What if they tie?
They're tied, they're fine.
Tie, they're fine. You're going to tie. Game's almost over. I got to go. I got to make this hard out. But I'll be back in a second.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast.